Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this long awaited second episode of Women's Issues uh, Insights from the Couch. And as always, I'm joined by my dear friend, Dr. Ana Maria from Seven Counseling. And I want to we have a lot to talk about today, so I'm going to jump right in. We are going to be talking today about how sometimes you may not feel like you are emotionally regulated enough. You may feel like you're too much. You may be hearing things like you are too much, or you're too emotional, or you have too many feelings, or can you please just like calm down. And so, like, how do we interpret emotions? What are the differences between emotions and feelings? How do people react to emotions and feelings? How do we as individuals control our emotions, and how do we get to a point where we can actually learn enough about ourselves that we can regulate our emotions and we can feel confident going into difficult situations, whether it's a bad day or a very stressful moment, knowing that we'll be able to overcome it without losing ourselves in the process. So, welcome, Dr. Ana Maria, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you. So good to be with you again during this podcast.
I know.
Um, I feel like the reason why the two of us coincided in terms of what we were going to talk about this morning is because, or today, depending what time you're listening to this podcast, is because we mainly deal with the business of emotion, the business of feeling, the business of cognition. And sometimes we have to teach our clients, and we practice ourselves, hopefully, how to deal with this emotions and feelings. Jalili, you're going to make a distinction between
Yes.
those two so that people don't get confused. And I don't know if you want to do that
Yeah.
right now before we start.
Yeah. So, the first thing that we're going to talk about, because this is rarely talked about, but actually I think really important, there is a specific distinction between emotions and feelings. Even though most people confuse the two, they are not the same and they don't get processed the same. So emotions are automatic. They're typically due to a physical response to something that stimulated that response. So whether it was a loud noise, or it was something you saw, or something that you heard, or something that you touched, or something that somebody did to your physical body, that's an emotion. One thing that you can interpret as an emotion is elevated heart rate, your adrenaline pumping through you because you have a response to a fear. Maybe somebody startled you. This typically is very short lived. So, emotions, whenever you have a therapist tell you, just hold on to the feeling for 90 seconds and you'll be okay, they're talking about emotion regulation. They're talking about the short lived emotion that you're going through, which usually lasts about 90 seconds. And the reason for that is because your brain was startled out of its natural response. And so, like, you just needed a few seconds because the brain works very fast. You just needed a few seconds to kind of redirect it back. And whether it was to calm it down or whether it was to reassure yourself or whatever. So, emotions are short lived. They're usually not something that you can consciously control. They come very quickly, and then you just sort of hold on to it for a second, let it do its process. There's usually a physical process that comes with it, and then you can move on from it. So they're usually based on instinct, um, survival instinct, fight or flight reflex. Those types of things are based on emotion. Now, feelings are what we often confuse with emotions, and feelings are a conscious meaning or label that you put on the emotions, and that usually lasts a lot longer. It lasts however long you allow yourself to feed that feeling. Oftentimes the feeling is created by past history, whether it's a cognitive belief that you have that you associate with the emotion. So, for example, I'll give you something very brief. I startled you. Okay. I startled you, And your emotional reaction was to become startled and then start to cry. Why? Because you had a moment of being startled, and that is out of your control, and it just happened, and it's perfectly normal. You start to sob, and I go to you and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. You could have chosen to just hold on to that moment and just let the reassurance of the person come through you and then move on. But if in the past you've been startled before by something terrible, or something terrible followed that moment, whether it was a car crash, whether it was a phone call that was a terrible phone call and you found out someone you loved died, and that was the moment of being startled, you may very well not be able to stop. You may then turn around and get mad at me. You may get frustrated at me. You may start reliving that moment with me. You may actually not want to be my friend anymore. All those are the feelings that go along with that one moment of just, I accidentally startled you. So that's the difference between the two. And oftentimes, again, we kind of confuse them, and that leads to some issues in themselves, because it makes us believe that we don't actually have as much control as we really do.
True. And I wanted to add that I think feelings are information responses that every species experiences, or emotions, I should say.
Yeah,
So
emotions.
this is something that is not unique to humans. It's just we tend to dwell on the experience and the meaning of the experience, and the more we feel that meaning, what it means to me, the more it's gonna get out of control. And so I think that psychology from last century is to blame for this stoicism that has been taught to people, in terms of you don't need to feel your emotions. Emotions are pesky. Emotions is something that is not necessary. It goes against intellectual processes. And I believe that right now, thankfully, we're understanding emotion regulation is about acknowledging what's going on with us in the moment. And it is very important that we do that, all of us. So if I get activated or triggered in some sort of way, the best way to deal with it is located in my body, because believe it or not, guys, the emotions are going to be located in the body, and process that emotion. What does it mean to me? What part of me is dysregulated with this emotion? The more we understand it and deal with it in the moment, the better off we're going to be. Because if we don't, if we shove it under the rug or pretend like it's not important, if we don't understand it, most likely we're going to have those outbursts that come up later, and they make us feel like crap because we shouldn't have done that. I should have known better. Why did I say this to this person? So I think that that's a very important principle of emotion regulation, to really understand what it means.
I had a patient who she had some very difficult anger management issues, that she did not feel comfortable with the fact that she couldn't control that anger. And we started doing some deep dives, and I found out that that's all she did was repress. All she did was repress her emotions for years and years and years, and she had so much trauma to deal with. So all that she used to do this exercise, which a therapist taught her. She used to do this exercise. She used to, the minute she thought about something that was unpleasant, she would just say, well, I don't need to think about that, I'm over that. And then she would just shove it out of her mind and push it out of her mind. And she was following the advice of the therapist, who's a wonderful therapist, by the way. I know her personally. But I think the interpretation of the advice wasn't the best, because she kept doing that over and over and over again. And then what was happening was she was getting angry out of even the smallest thing. And so when you wonder, why do people have such a hard time controlling themselves when that one little thing, they stub their toe, or they're running 5 minutes late, or something like that, it's like, no, it is drips and drips and drips and drips and drips, like
Mm.
until you just overflow. Like you cannot hold it in anymore because you've been ignoring those emotions for so, like those feelings specifically, for so long, that that one thing, that
That's the
emotional moment
that's the
triggered all.
cherry on top.
Yeah, it was a cherry on top.
It's interesting you were talking about that because I do a lot of eye movement reprocessing desensitization work
Oh,
with clients. And I had a similar case with a person that was so angry about something that wasn't just that happened. And given the space for that person to vocalize this anger, to give it a shape, to give it a color, to name it, to talk about it. In fact, she got quite vocal, and she started talking very loud about her experience. She was like, "It's unfair. This is not fair." But it was such a powerful way for her to purge all
mm-hmm.
that pain and all that emotion that was causing her to just be dysregulated. So it is extremely important to acknowledge what's going on. Once again, I mean, thanks to psychology from the 20th and 19th century, but I feel like right now we need to be a little more mindful of not only emotion regulation, but emotional intelligence. I think those two subjects need to be very much brought up to our clients. Another thing is the way
Oh,
we perceive. Yep.
I wanted to say one more thing about that patient actually.
Yep.
So, so what I suggested to her, and I think it's important for the topic, what I suggested to her is one thing, and it's funny because it came to me in the moment. I don't know, I was inspired. But what I suggested to her was, you need to understand that there's a very good chance that these thoughts are popping up in your mind because you may be ready to finally process that feeling, and you
Mhm.
may
Mhm.
actually have gotten to a point in your healing process that maybe when you were 6 years old being abused, you didn't feel safe enough to feel what you needed to feel. But now, when you're 65, like now you're grown and you are in a safe space and you've done the work, and now your brain might finally feel safe enough to process it. And every single time you shove it to the back of your mind, you're not giving yourself that grace that your 6 year old self needed to be able to move past that trauma. And so, what I had
Yeah.
her do was, don't be afraid of the thought. When the thought comes, just let it sit for a moment and ask yourself, what did I need at the time that this memory was happening or this thought was happening? What did I need then that I could not get, that I can give myself now? Was it security? Was it comfort? Was it love? Was it, safety? What was it that I can do now? And so, like, that's what she started to do. She started to allow the memories and the thought to come, just sort of be in a safe space. She would let it happen, and then she would just ask herself, what is it that I need so that I can feel better about this, and so that I can give myself some grace. And it's been working out really well for her.
Yeah, I think you're touching on something that perhaps we should discuss in a different episode, which is the parts of a human. Sometimes when we're dealing with the emotions, it's really not your adult self that is talking. Is probably a wounded child, a shadow part of you. But again, that's a very interesting
Right,
subject, and you brought a great approach for emotion regulation.
right.
Um, I always have my adult clients watching Inside Out, the first movie.
Oh, I loved it.
Big because I feel it's such a teaching tool regarding emotions, how emotions are not labeled good or bad, ugly or pretty. We need to have all those emotions for a reason. And those responses are completely natural and organic. I do have challenges with anger. I don't like to feel angry, but I know that anger can be very motivating for certain things as long as I don't harm other people or myself with the anger. The anger doesn't necessarily need to be negative or bad. So if someone is listening to us, this old Pixar, I think it's Pixar, movie, it talks about how emotions are so important. Each one of your emotions, all the range of emotions are important. It's not just happiness. We're not meant to be happy all the time. That's unrealistic. Um, So with that, I wanted to say, I don't know if you have noticed this, but sometimes people, if you hold the space for them to be vulnerable and show this emotion, they're so grateful, but oftentimes it comes with, I'm sorry. I have
Oh yeah.
tons of people who cry in my office and it's, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Or
So we are taught.
they'll say, "Oh, I'm probably your most difficult patient," and I'm like, "No, my most difficult patient hasn't been born yet." But yeah, they'll say, "I'm so sorry. I'm probably giving you a hard time today, aren't I?"
Yeah, because in general terms, people are not very comfortable with other emotions besides happiness. And now I think it's a pertinent time to introduce how genders
Yeah.
deal with emotions in different ways. I know that in the time we live in, there's gender fluid individuals. But generally speaking, if we're talking about men and women, we deal
Mhm.
with emotions very differently. And so the programming happens differently. The I'm sorry, I'm going to say for me, comes from Catholicism. I don't want to offend any sensitivities. I appreciate my Catholic clients and I love them very much. I love my Catholic education, but I'm a recovering Catholic, so I don't practice it anymore. But a lot of it was the I'm sorry. I'm sorry for I shouldn't feel
Shame.
this way. I
Yeah.
shouldn't explain why I'm sad, or there's no time to be sad. There's no time to be hurt. There's no time to be disappointed. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm inconveniencing you. So
Yes.
for us ladies, thankfully, we have this range of emotion that we can show and it's expected. But it's not pretty to be a lady and be angry. That's not sexy. That's not nice. And then for men, the range of emotion is very limited. So either they're angry or they're happy or okay. Um, so it is important to understand how society plays these tricks in terms of programming and how we deal with our emotions. Basically, for those, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead because I have
No,
a thought,
no,
but I'll hold on to it because
no,
it's
please go ahead. I was gonna, yeah, go ahead. It's fine.
well. I was gonna say, and I don't know if it fits this very moment, but I was just gonna say, men have a tendency to oversimplify women's emotions, and women have a tendency to overcomplicate men's emotions. And
Yes.
it's because we can only see the world through our own personal filter, and so while you have a man that can say, "Oh, she's just probably on her period," um, you know, yeah, she's probably PMSing. While you have a man that might say that, and a woman that might be like, "Oh my gosh, this is his childhood trauma. Like, he was actually a very lonely boy, and then that's why he just can't emote properly. That's why he gets angry all the time." Like, while the women are trying to literally find the most in depth answer to the fact that he just got mad, like men are more like, "Oh, it's just hormones." So like we feel in the opposite sides of the spectrum, and we also identify those emotions in the complete opposite sides of the spectrum too.
Yeah, I think partially that's just hormones and how we are differently in terms of chemistry, but also it's a learned behavior because once upon a time, and I think it's still happening, you would hear things like, boys don't cry or
Uh-huh.
get it together. That's not a man thing to do. Don't cry. Don't be, sorry for the word. You might have to blur
Don't
it,
be a
but
baby.
well, don't be a pussy. That's
Okay, that was
so that for men. And for women, again, if you display emotions that are not sadness or happiness or fear, if you're angry, then the programming would be nice. That's not what nice girls do. Like,
you're too
just be
bossy.
nice. Exactly.
You're too
Exactly.
bossy, or um, the shrewd, the shrew, the taming of the shrew, or you're how can we trust you if you can't control yourself 7 days out of the month?
And well, I mean, but Honestly, yes, you and I know that the menstrual cycle has an effect in the way we
Oh, it
feel.
does.
Maybe not all of us, but the funny part too is that there is not a lot of research about the hormonal changes in men that happen on daily basis. So maybe it is social programming that they don't recognize emotions because they were not taught to. I know plenty of male clients that are very sensitive people,
Oh,
but they don't give themselves the time to explore those emotions because it's not a thing. I think that this is like the old school misinformation of men are visual. Uh,
yeah.
we women are visual too. So with emotions,
Yeah.
the problem is that this programming and not understanding the emotions creates a snowball effect. And like you were saying, things start to add up. And next thing you know, something very small, seemingly small, creates a blow up. And that's when we find our clients being emotionally dysregulated.
Yeah.
So I think what is important to notice is what is your go-to emotion, because most of us have a go-to that we feel more comfy with, and what is a good way to process that emotion. I can share with you that for anger, I think anger is a very physical emotion, and I do a lot of physical activities because it helps me literally release that energy.
Yeah.
If it is something like sadness, you're allowed to be sad. I mean, nobody said that sadness, this toxic positivity drives me crazy. I mean, if your pet died or you lost someone you love, you are completely entitled to feel that sadness, that sorrow, and it is okay to cry. I'm going to say God because I believe in God, but God gave us the capacity to wash ourselves from the inside out through the tears, and so many people just don't want to do it. So guess what? If we don't process the emotion, most likely we're going to be sick physically at some point. That's, I don't think
Physi-
it's just my belief.
Physically and mentally.
Yeah.
Um, okay. So let's say, right, because we're going to be talking about how hard it is to feel safe
Yes.
as well. To feel the emotions that you're feeling, right?
Mhm.
I work with a lot of people who are very strong, and we talked about the strong woman. We've talked about man and feelings. You don't have to process your emotions in front of people or someone else. If you're not in an environment where the people around you have made it safe for you to feel emotions and to feel your feelings, that's okay to do it privately. There are ways that you can still feel what you need to feel, whether it's while you're taking a shower, you just kind of give yourself some room to process, or maybe you do some meditating before you fall asleep. Maybe you go for a walk and think about what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Maybe you have a private spot that you can go to and cry. But don't think that just because you cannot show emotion in front of the people around you because you don't feel comfortable doing it, that you are not entitled to feeling what you gotta feel.
hmm Yeah, that's a great point, Jalili. And I hope that all of us therapists that are offering our services can hold that safe space for people to be vulnerable and to process these emotions. I like to teach my clients to do that in their own timing, like you're explaining. So I feel like one of the most important things to do is to acknowledge what's going on, because we live in that culture of denying emotions. They're pesky. If it is not happiness, of course, everything else is pesky. Nobody wants to feel afraid or angry or sad. So we don't even name the emotion, we don't recognize it. Plenty of times I have had people where I ask, what is that emotion? What name does it have? You'd be surprised how many times people don't have the name for it.
Yeah.
So literally, I have a wheel of emotions, different emotions, you name the word. And it is interesting how people start acknowledging and they start getting better at noticing the emotion and naming it. I feel like those could be very easy to do steps for the listeners.
Yeah.
And perhaps the more complex things we can talk about at another time. But
Sure.
that would be a suggestion of mine, to acknowledge and name it. Very
Acknowledge.
important.
Okay, so acknowledge, name it, and then I would also add, um, try to acknowledge, are you trying to sneak a feeling in there that shouldn't be there? Like, is
Okay.
this, like, because the emotion might be something like, I'm pissed off right now. That is the acknowledgement of the emotion. The emotion is anger. I'm beyond furious, right? Then how you feel it in your body is like, you can say, my head is banging, my eyes twitching, like I feel hot, like, right?
And that's where we have to get into the window of tolerance, because some people, I think most of us have, I'm going to say functioning adults, have had to push ourselves through window of tolerance in a situation. So we need to be aware when is too much. When can I just not take this? Even if it seems like a small thing, we have to be aware of that. And I think that that's what you're talking
When do you
about.
need to walk away?
Exactly, exactly. Yes.
Especially because, for example, kids can make us angry very quickly. Like, our kids have they have like a direct freaking access to
Button.
all the buttons that trigger
Yes.
us emotionally.
Yes.
Right? So if you need to be able to say, okay, I'm feeling really angry or really flustered right now, really upset. I can tell because my heart rate went up and I'm like, my head's banging or like tight or whatever. Like, you can tell. It's pretty obvious. Anger is an easy one to catch. So, like, I'm feeling really frustrated, really angry right now. I think, let's take a 5 minute break because I need to step away. Because then, if you don't do something about the emotion in that moment, or give yourself the grace to process that emotion, then you're inevitably going to bring in feelings into the equation, and then it's going to be like, I just feel like you're being so rude and like so disrespectful, and I can't handle this. I woke up and I had a terrible night, and now this is the way you act, and all I do is I try for you and blah blah blah, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're going off on your kids, you're having a terrible day, you're feeling guilty, you're like all these different things. And at the end of the day, all that happened was that you accidentally forgot one thing in the car and had to go back and get it. And they
Mm.
weren't being easy about it.
But again, there has to be a place where we can, as we're feeling things or experiencing something, I'm sorry, we could process them in real time, and that's what's going to prevent the dysregulation from happening. The window of tolerance is funny you mentioned that, because you go like, anger is an easy one to spot. And I don't know if it is because the two of us, you're Caribbean, from the Caribbean, and I'm from South America. I guess that we're more hot-blooded overall, not using stereotypes here, but like, I guess that Latinos, we, for the most part, we have this connection with emotion.
Yeah.
We may be more comfortable with it, but I can tell you, I have had Caucasian clients, and male specifically, that get very sarcastic, very snippy. And that's a way to show anger. It's not necessarily what you would see typically as anger.
Yeah.
It's more the passive aggression,
Passive
you
aggressive.
know.
The sarcasm.
And
Yeah.
yes, and if I ask that person, what are you feeling in your body? Crickets. There's no connection at that moment to say, oh, I feel it in my face, or I feel it in my stomach, or it's very hard for people like that to identify what's going on with their window of tolerance.
I would say, no, I agree with you. There, like you mentioned before, it's really hard sometimes for people to feel like they're allowed to even have an emotional response to their anger. So they're probably suppressing their physical response to it. They're suppressing it, but they can't keep their mouth shut. They have to let it out in some way. But so hence the sarcastic comment or the joke that's totally inappropriate, or the eye roll, for example, or something like that, is like, those are usually people that were not allowed to feel hardly anything that was not the perfect, obviously the perfect behavior. And I would say, if you are that person, okay, if you are the type of person that never felt comfortable expressing your emotion, especially anger, um, I would say meditation is probably the only way that you can, like, giving yourself. Okay. I have a patient that I'm working with that I'm doing this with him because he's suppressed like nothing I've ever seen in my life. It's powerful how he's just does not feel, and it's affecting him significantly. It's caused him to develop terrible depression, and which he doesn't even realize he has because he doesn't feel.
Right.
So this is what I told him. I said, what are you doing when you're in the shower? Like, do you like hot water, cold water? What do you like? He's like, no, I hate cold water. I hate it so much. I said, okay, so I'm going to make you hate me because I'm going to make you take cold showers every single day. You're going to take 30 seconds of freezing cold, as cold as you can humanly stand it. You're going to stand in that shower for 30 seconds. And I'm like, while you're doing that, I want you to just think whatever comes to your mind. You can curse me out. You can curse out the world. And he's like, that's going to suck. I'm like, good. I need to put you in a position where you cannot control the emotion. It needs to come out naturally and you need to let it happen. And so I make him do things that make him very uncomfortable so that he
That's
will
good.
feel something, because he has to feel something because he doesn't know how to feel it. He doesn't know how to interpret, and he definitely doesn't know how to feel it.
I think I'm going to talk about emotion as energy, because it is something that we feel in the body. This is not something that is, ooh, it's like really, it's an energy. No, for real. So, long time
Oh
ago, I
yeah.
remember when I was in school, I was talking to a professor about anger management. And I thought, I was like, wouldn't it be better to give the person the opportunity to let that rage out in a safe, controlled environment? And I remember my professor was like, oh my God, that's not a good idea because then it would be out of control. I can't remember exactly all the feedback.
Yeah.
Well, guess what, my friend? I wish that I would have followed my own thought process back then, because now we have rage rooms where
I know. I was just thinking about that. Love it.
go and pay to break some stuff, and it's in the safest environment. And by the time you're done, you feel, ah, it's kind of like what the gym would do or workout would do for anger. But what you're doing, putting your client in an uncomfortable position, is going to help them to identify that emotion in the window of tolerance as well. So, with that said, I feel like emotion regulation is all about channeling that emotion, understanding it, and it just processing the emotion.
Yeah.
Um, how much can we tolerate? What is my breaking point? Like, I can already tell you, because I've been in this body for so long, that
Yeah.
I know my limits. But a lot of people don't, like your client. What are
Yeah.
you feeling? Ah.
You go from one extreme to the other. There's like the other patient I was telling you about before we started, who her window of tolerance is very small, and then we have my other patient who has no end to his window of tolerance. The things that he's gone through are the most. I mean, health wise, he's only in his 40s and he has suffered so much, but his window of tolerance is endless, and that is because he simply just shut it all off. And then he shut it all off: the love, the happiness, the joy, the sadness, the anger, all of it just got shut off. And so you have to find kind of that middle ground of like, okay, this moment is not the right moment for me to get angry to the point where I'm like cursing out, doing something, whatever. How long can I hold on to that? But then when I am in a place, because I am going to purposely put myself in a place where I can process this, I am going to purposely and mindfully put myself in a situation, whether it's a safe place at home, whether it's in the gym, whether it's out going for a run, whatever. I know that I can hold on to this anger or this emotion, whatever it may be, grief, whatever. I can hold on to it for a couple hours. Just let me get home. Just let me put on my running shoes and just let me go for my run,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, the kids are driving me crazy, but I still love them. I still have to be a parent. I can control myself long enough to make it to the gym, or I can control myself long enough to make it to my spin class, or call my best friend on the way back to work from dropping them off, or so that is what the window of tolerance looks like. It's like, how long can you hold the emotion under that window of appropriate time.
Tolerance. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So again, I don't know. I think very important to identify what's happening, because a lot of the time we don't even know what's happening until we feel it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is how to regulate it, right? So you're talking about interventions for your client who has extreme window of tolerance. I don't know what intervention you had with the one that doesn't have a lot of window of tolerance. At that point, maybe let the person rant. I don't know. But that energy has to go somewhere. Hence, we sometimes advise people or let people know, grab a journal, write it down, talk it over with someone. Like you were saying earlier, find a safe space where you can actually cry. I tell people, get in your car, turn the radio on or music on, and give it a good scream. I mean, there used to be something called primal scream back in the
I do it. Day. I tell people to do it all the time. I don't give a shit if it's old school. I love it.
But it has to come out somehow. And the funny part, Jalil, is that I feel like nature itself has given us these tools. But for some reason, we have convinced ourselves that emotions are pesky and we don't need to acknowledge them. And that's why we find ourselves in situations where we're just out of control with emotions sometimes, or flatline emotion.
Yeah. And then you end up, depressed or with generalized anxiety because you didn't give yourself the grace to understand what your body's trying to tell you. At the end of the day, I think this is my thought. I believe that our bodies speak to us.
Totally.
I believe that our body holds room for uncomfortable moments for as long as it can, and then it starts to scream at us. And if you refuse to listen to it, and you refuse to acknowledge it, it will then morph into something else. And it will either morph into fear or anxiety or grief or depression or anger. Like it has a way of transforming. But
this is true.
Yeah, but it needs to be heard.
Some people who are masters channeling emotion are artists, I feel, of any kind of media. I mean, I'm going to bring something very old school that most people may not relate to because it's old school, but I remember this great artist from grunge time back in the 90s, Kurt Cobain from Nirvana. And what amazing music that person was able to create with those emotions. I think he one time was grateful for heartbreak and let down because it gave him the fuel to create his art. It happens like that with visual artists, people who paint, or dancers. I mean, emotion should be an expression for creativity, and I think by shunning it, we're just selling ourselves shorts and making ourselves sick, like you were saying. So anyway.
Okay.
All right, guys. So real quick. So please acknowledge what's going on. We can start there.
Yeah.
Then name it, please. And then let's just see what that window of tolerance looks like for you. And from that point. Mm-hmm.
And start naming it something. It doesn't matter if you're not 100%. You don't have to be a therapist. Just you can say I'm pissed, or you can say I'm annoyed, or you can say whatever comes to mind. You don't have to be perfect at it.
Yeah, actually, real quick before we part ways, one of my clients did something like that. I was like, if that emotion had a shape and a color, what would it be? And she said, oh, it would be a snake that is really upset. And the name is Sonia. And I was like, okay.
The snake.
It's Sonia, So, yeah, that good point.
Right. So start by at least giving it some sort of a shape, like you were saying, some sort of a shape, so that then you can go back to it or work through it. I also think the next thing that I recommend is you're try to get your window of tolerance to at least be 90 seconds, because the majority of the time, most of your emotional responses are due to a stimulus, right, as we were saying, and stimulus are usually processed within 90 seconds. So if you can hold your window of tolerance long enough to maybe go take a cold take a towel, put some cold water on it, put it on your forehead or your eyes for a few seconds, or go wash your face, or go and get something to drink, or watch something funny on TikTok, whatever. Like, if you can hold the window of tolerance just long enough to do just a small task, that can at least get your emotional regulation back on track before you let the feelings start taking over, you've already pretty much won the game at that point.
But I think real quick before we part ways, I'm sorry, I said that twice. It is super important to acknowledge that sometimes the emotion is unmanageable due to chemical aspects. But that's something that we probably need to touch on a different episode.
Grief can be something like that. Hormones can be something like that.
Absolutely.
So for, let's say, everyday emotions. I wish we were on video right now because she's so cute. Okay, everyday emotions, about 90 seconds. Try to get your window of tolerance to about 90 seconds. Cold is usually a good idea, so whether it's a cold piece of ice that you can put on your temple or your lymph nodes, or a compress, or go wash your face, or take a cold shower, something like that can be helpful. That's for everyday emotion. Okay, window of tolerance about 90 seconds. Name it and acknowledge it.
Feel it.
Acknowledge it, feel it, name it. Okay, you should be fine. Things that are much bigger than that. Hey, somebody, your husband just told you that he wants a divorce. Like, that's a much bigger emotion than I woke up this morning and I had a migraine and I don't feel good. So like, for the bigger emotions, grief, pain, anger, things that are out of our control, hormonal changes that may feel out of our control, for that, name it, acknowledge it, and then just try to create a window of tolerance that's long enough for you to get to a place where you can process it. Whether that's to the gym, whether that's to the phone, whether that's to a safe space, whatever.
Emotions are not a sign of weakness. Emotions mean that you're alive and you're a human. And it's interesting how humanoids or artificial intelligence can understand emotions better than humans sometimes when you talk to them. So you're just being human, basically, when you're feeling your emotion. Nothing's wrong with you.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so with that said, thank you so much for joining us with Insights from the Couch, and we appreciate you. Thank you for your patience in waiting for this episode. We hope that it was helpful, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.